I can promise you a few things here tonight. We're going to hear some great stories. We're going to have some laughs. And we're probably going to have a few tears, which is all fine. But most importantly, we're going to hear about the importance of the mission of Bethany Lutheran College. And for a lot of these athletes, we have not had an athlete go in that has played here 4 years. So for all of these athletes, they were here during the 2-year existence at Bethany Lutheran College. 2 years is not a very long time. 24 months. And in fact, if you look at it really as they were a student, less than that. But the impact of Bethany, the one thing needful. We're going to hear some stories from the team 1973, who I believe at that time was probably the first team from the northern portion of the United States to actually place at a national tournament. And the impact, it was great to talk to them earlier today. And then these 4 individuals who are going in, and I had the opportunity to watch a couple of them play. But again, you're going to hear some great stories. And it's going to be a very impactful night. And again, the idea of the mission of the one thing needful, Dr. Pfeiffer talked about it. Things have changed here at Bethany over the years, but the existence, the core message, the one thing needful at Bethany is still at the forefront of what we try to accomplish within our athletic program here at Bethany Lutheran College. First person we want to bring up has somewhat of a rare distinction. I think George Davis, one of only 2 individuals that were actually coached by a couple members of our current Hall of Fame. He would have been playing during Bruno Walensky's last year's coach, and he'll be introduced right now by a guy who coached him in his first year as a head coach here at Bethany. Let's bring up Ron Young.
Thanks, Don. I'm sure you're all wondering, I'm bringing up a folder. You know, this is probably not good news for you because it means this might take a little longer, and I really will try to keep it as brief as I can. But this requires a little bit of reminiscing for me as well. I want to say, first of all, I would like to recognize the person who probably was most influential in George's success and not just athletic, but in his success as a coach, and that's his wife, Marcia. Marcia, stand up, please. And I'm also very proud to say that one of my other former players is going to be inducted tonight also, and I believe you're not the only ones dressed in red, but I feel kind of bad that I didn't put something on red. But that's Donnie and Hollis Howard, who you'll hear from a little later. But yeah, as was mentioned, 1967. First year college coach, what do I know? Not much. It was interesting as I arrived on campus because I'd been assured by Bruno that the barn was stocked with good players, and I got here and I found out there's only one returning player from the previous year, and it turns out that was George. And that wasn't all bad because you got a freshman coach, you might as well have a bunch of freshman ball players and kind of grow together. And so it didn't take me long to appoint him as our captain, and he was a good captain. George, you need to understand, is really well liked. It's just his, I don't know, his personality, and he adopted or got a nickname, which I'll have him explain that when he gets up here. But a lot of people still call him Boomer. Mark, right? I don't know what that's about, but it's not important here. But the first year memories, it's funny, as a coach, after 19 years, that's a lot of games, 450 or 60 games, and they all kind of blur in a way. There are some that stand out, but the first year, for some reason, those kind of stand out. And there's a couple of them. One of them was the MLC game here, and I don't know if anyone was here from the previous year, your previous team, but that was a heartbreaking loss you guys had to them here. I happened to be here at the time and lost on a last-second heave at the buzzer, and it was hard. So we really planned for that game. I mean, we really planned for that, and we ended up winning the game. And that was a great memory for me, and I'm sure for them. And the other one was the very last game of the season. we were playing Waldorf here at home, and I just felt like the guys needed to loosen up a little bit. And I said, look, you get across half court, you're in your shooting zone. This is NBA basketball. We're going to have fun tonight. Just fire it up. Let's go. And, well, we ended up with 123 points. That's without the three-point shot. We were talking about that. I know Bruno had teams that would have had monstrous numbers if they had had the three-pointer. But anyway, that's a few memories of that. George went on to his coaching career in Indiana, and he was a big help to me in recruiting of other Indiana kids. I would call George, and it's fun. Indiana's different. Coaching is a little more important down there. And he was a coach, and he said, hey, whenever you come, I'll just take a few days off. Really? You can take days off to go with your college coach? Oh, yeah, that's no problem. I'll just talk to my principal. And he did. And we'd take a couple of days, and we were in a lot of different places, and he was very instrumental. And I know he helped Art also in recruiting, and Lyle. I believe he helped you recruit some female athletes, and you love alumni who can help you in that way, especially if you're still coaching. So George, I'm wondering, you're probably wondering why I'm in the Hall of Fame, and I can tell you a little bit about the committee that selects, and we look at a lot of different things. It's not just because you're a good basketball player. And you were a good basketball player, good leader, good basketball player. But there's other things too. And along with being a really good basketball player, you were a fine high school coach. And I'll read a little bit from his bio when he went into the Hall of Fame at his local high school. He spent 15 years as the girls' basketball head coach from 1981 to 95. During that time, he had an overall record of 241 wins and just 72 losses for an impressive 770 winning percentage. He had just one losing season in 15 years, and he had two teams go undefeated through the regular season. His team had 3 losses or less, a total of 7 times. They won 7 South County titles, 8 PCC, I'm not sure what that means, round-robin titles, 6 PCC tournament titles, and 6 sectional crowns. His team finished either first or second in the conference round-robin race in 12 of his 15 years. So that tells you a little bit that was quite impressive as we were reading and looking at the qualifications for the Hall of Fame. So that was to your credit, George. Also to your credit is the fact that he was very active in his churches as he moved from one place to another. He taught high school Sunday school class. He was a Sunday school superintendent. He was on the church council at one of his churches. He was an usher, scripture reader, is currently a member of the Holy Cross Lutheran Church in Jenison, Michigan, and he served as the vice president of St. Paul Lutheran Church in Couts. We look for what impact the college has had on the player. And obviously, along with Marcia, there was a big impact for George, and it was very interesting to see. I failed to mention that he also was up here for basketball camp a number of years, and we just had a great time having George here teaching free throws. And you know, we were pretty structured in our basketball camp. We gave him 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Well, George never could teach free throws in 10 minutes. It took a lot longer. We were always off schedule. But here's the kicker, that we also had the opportunity to hear from some of his former players. And this really got to me because I think as a coach, if there's anything that's important to you, yes, the wins are important, but it's the impact you have on the players that you work with. And so I have some quotes here. I just felt like I needed to write to read these off. This one is from someone called Missy Steinagel. You probably remember Missy. Coach Davis is a man of great integrity. He was a friend on and off the court, a true leader and father figure and a great motivator. He would say jump and we would say how high. He made us love basketball when basketball wasn't even that cool for girls. I remember when I was in 8th grade and I loved cheerleading, and I didn't make the JV squad for the following year. I was an alternate. I thought my life was over. I remember him coming up to me that day and saying, "Missy, you don't know this now, but this is the best thing that ever happened to you." I looked at him like he was crazy, but he was so right. If I would have made cheerleading, I would have never gone out for basketball. I can't imagine my life without basketball and all the great memories and friendships I made. I guess you had an influence on Missy. This is one from Diane Hoover. And I'll just read part of it. I don't want to read the whole thing. But she says, "Thank you for teaching me the importance of believing in myself and perseverance to reach my goals, no matter how lofty. For my years of playing basketball for you, I learned the importance of teamwork, respectfulness, and always giving 100% in whatever task I was involved in. These ideals are still important to me today." I was just about losing my voice yesterday, and I think I'm going to lose it. I better finish up here. I'm honored to be one of the girls who was lucky enough to be coached by George Davis. Your efforts made Couts Philly basketball the successful program it is today. As an adult, I now realize what sacrifices must have been necessary to be the great coach you are. Thanks again to you, as well as your wife and children, for their sacrifices. I'm sure that they're very proud. I hope you enjoy your retirement to the fullest. That's Diane Hoover. This might be the one that got me the most. Excuse me. You invested in us. You taught us. You inspired us. You trusted us. You showed us that we were stronger, faster, and smarter than we ever knew we were. You made us run and sweat until we thought we couldn't move anymore, and we learned that we had energy reserves that we had never tapped into before. You made us evaluate our mistakes and own them. Then you put us back in the game to give us another chance to show you that we had learned from your mistakes. You made us commit to you and to others as teammates, and you wrangled our parents and made them commit to your rules too. Somehow, in commandeering our excitement for the game of basketball, you taught us how to commandeer qualities within ourselves that have carried over all of us through life ever since. I will skip that part, but it's great. And this was her final statement. I guess what I really want to say is thank you. You gave me so much more than you could ever know. You helped make me who I am today, a mother of 3, a lawyer, a marathon runner, a strong woman with a big heart full of love and appreciation for everyone who touched my life. And you, George Davis, touched my life. Thank you. And that was from Ann Abril. So we'd all love to have someone say that about us, I think. And finally, this one's going to be maybe a little surprise for you. This happens to be from your daughter and her family. Dear Dad, a.k.a. Poppy, we are deeply saddened that we can't be there on such a special night, but we have prepared this letter to share in honor of your recognition. The 2 words that exemplify my dad the most as our coach and integrity. He has impacted so many lives as a teacher coach over the years and at many schools. He has had a tremendous success, and it's because of his leadership and dedication. He has coached me through many lifetime lessons. In fact, he was my high school basketball coach. That was an interesting 4 years. Especially after the games, huh? I was playing in a game and twisted my ankle badly, but he wouldn't take me out. He told me from the sideline to get up and shake it off. I even begged his assistant to take me out. Nonetheless, we were in the ER that night and on crutches for 2 weeks. Still haven't figured out that life lesson. Or the times after the game where you would get the silent treatment at home from my mom and me. During those years, he believed in all of us and taught us to succeed in life. You need to play by the rules. When I went off to college, the best advice for me was to marry a doctor. Well, I honestly gave that a shot, but inevitably, I married a college basketball coach. They say you will marry the qualities of your dad. Your coaching qualities growing up impacted that lifelong decision. I see him now coaching his granddaughters, Hannah and Riley, in sports, and also those hard life lessons that build character. He teaches them the important things in life, like the words to take me out of the ball game or how to punctuate sentences correctly. By definition, integrity means the quality of being honest and have strong moral principles. He has been an amazing caregiver and provider for my brother and me through the years. He continues to be our biggest supporter and encourager through everything we do. He is authentic and genuine. In the eyes of his granddaughters, he is never busy and always has time to play with them. So for the last 40 years, I have heard his stories of his greatness when he played at Bethany, especially Marty's Pizza. From holding the opponent's best player to season low points total to scoring 36 points in a game, and not to mention his numerous victories. The stories of how my parents met there. I guess his dark glasses, slender body, and short shorts is what attracted my mom. I will have to say I'm finally convinced of your accomplishments here at Bethany College. We want you to know we are all proud of you, and congratulations on your Hall of Fame induction. I know you are always so humble, but you are very deserving of this award. You have always been a Hall of Famer in our book. Love, Carrie, Bert, Riley, Hannah, and Chris. So George, welcome to the BLC Hall of Fame 2016. Congratulations.
Thanks, Ron. I was nicely composed until that last one. As you said, that was quite a surprise. Anyway, it's always great to come back to Bethany and see lifelong friends that started here nearly 50 years ago. Ron, of course, is one of those lifelong friends. Ron arrived on campus in 1967. He retired in 2010. That's 43 years of service to Bethany. And what a service it was. Ron made a positive influence on myself and thousands of students who attended Bethany, both athletes and non-athletes. No matter what position Ron held during those 43 years, he made great improvements for Bethany Lutheran College. So it's no wonder why the Board of Regents honored Ron by naming the South Gym the Ronald J. Young Gymnasium. Well deserved, Ron. I want to congratulate the other inductees, Amy, Donald, Dan, Mike Butterfield, and his 1973 men's soccer team. I also want to thank family and friends for being here tonight to share this great honor with me. My brother-in-law, Ken Butzel, sitting over here, is a 1970 graduate of Bethany College. That's the same year that Art Westfall graduated from Bethany, 1970. So if you want to know what Art was like back in the day, I'm sure Ken's got some stories that you have never, ever heard before. His wife, Linda, is here also. She is a graduate of Mankato State. It's great to see Bruno and Miriam. If it wasn't for Bruno, I wouldn't be standing here right now because he's the one that recruited me to Bethany. It's always great to see Ron Young, Mary Young, Art and Terry Westfall. I have also my roommates, Dennis Malinke and Mark Matson. Dennis's wife, Sandy, was a roommate of my wife, and Mark Matson and Dennis and I were roommates our sophomore years. They were great roommates, sometimes. I remember coming home from a game. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, about 15 below out, seemed like about 10 feet of snow, and I didn't have a bed. It was out the window, 3 stories down, in a big snowdrift. To be honest, I wasn't in any really good mood to be doing that. I just played a basketball game somewhere, and I think it was real late. I don't think I got in the room till about 1 o'clock, 1:30. And I couldn't wait to go to sleep. So I went across the hallway and slept in Dan Browning's bed. Dan was gone for the weekend, and I was thankful that Dan was gone. And they still will not admit to doing that. They always look at each other and just smile. Also, Mark's wife, Sharon, it's great to see all of you, and thank you for being here. My wife, Marcia, is a 1970 graduate of Bethany. I'm sorry, 1967 graduate of Bethany. Yeah. Phew. We're just one of a million couples who have met on this campus and got married. I have to tell you, my wife was a great coach's wife. She loved my players. She knew all the right things to say to the coach after losses, and that was very, very important. Basketball games in Indiana, it's like Ron just kind of mentioned that a little bit. Winning is very important in basketball in high school in Indiana. And as a coach, you better win. You could be a great math teacher, great English teacher, but you better win basketball games too. So it's not always easy to sit in the crowd and when your husband or your old dad is the coach and listen to some of the comments that are directed at him. My wife learned early on how to handle those situations. Ignore them. And she did a good job. As a young kid, I always knew I wanted to be a high school basketball coach in Indiana. In Indiana, the gyms are always filled with fans. On game night, the stores are closed early so everyone can go home and get ready to go to the game. Where boys and girls varsity basketball teams are the pride and joy of every community, just like the movie Hoosiers. I grew up playing basketball almost every day on a basketball court down the alley, in a hay mound on a farm. I wish I had a nickel for every shot I took in a hay mound. And also, if it was raining or snowing, I'd sneak in that high school gymnasium somehow. All that playing basketball paid off for me because I got an opportunity to play at Bethany. Bruno started recruiting me early in my senior year of 1966, and I made the decision to attend Bethany in May of 1966. Obviously, it was a great decision, and thanks, Bruno, for recruiting me. I had great professors here at Bethany whose office doors were always open to help their students. Professors Reichwald, Otto, Tigan, Meyer, Johnson, Holte, and Lee, to name a few. I played for 2 men, Bruno and Ron, who were not only great coaches but also great human beings who made basketball playing here fun. When you talk about the history of Bethany's men's basketball, 4 names enter the conversation immediately. Dwayne Mintz, Bruno Walensky, Ron Young, and Art Westfall. I had great teammates like Rusty Huey, John Seawright, both from Indiana, Dave Lalanen, Dick Rush, Gary Glinke, Gary Kramer, Luther Limke, Jim Hirsch, called him Hershey Bar, and others. I made lifelong friends here during my Bethany experience, and I think it's after the days of Bethany you realize the Christian influence you received here and how it made your faith grow. Negatives at Bethany? Yes, there were two. Two negatives. The first was the spam that they served in the cafeteria. The second negative, the meatloaf they served in the cafeteria. And I could add a third one. My roommate Denny just told me a little bit ago the chicken wasn't very good either. It took him about 3 glasses of water to get the chicken down. So thank goodness, if you remember these, thank goodness for Bell's 15-cent hamburgers and Marty's Pizza. I remember going to basketball practices here, and there was this little gym rat, always running around and always wanted to rebound for me prior to practices. He told me once he always liked Indiana basketball players because they could shoot. Well, that gym rat is now Bethany's Director of Campus Spiritual Life, your very own Don Molstead. I was back here for my 45th reunion. After chapel service that Sunday, he actually recognized me, and we had a great visit. So Don, thanks for rebounding for me and getting the ball back to me quickly. When I graduated from Mankato State, I went back to Indiana searching for a boys' varsity basketball coaching job. I thought I knew the game well enough to start out as a varsity coach. Boy, was I wrong. Thank goodness my first job was as a junior high boys basketball coach. I remember walking to the dressing room, the very first game I coached. I walked to the dressing room at halftime, we had a 10-point lead. And I thought I had done a really great job preparing my team for this game. Well, the greatest thing that could have happened to me in the second half happened. I got out-coached so bad by a junior high boys basketball coach who had been coaching junior high for 25 years. He made adjustments at halftime that I was not prepared for. Things I never thought about, getting my team ready to play. My team lost by 10 points as they outscored us 20 points in the second half. At that moment, I realized it was one thing to play the game and another thing to coach it. I started to observe coaches during games. I listened to some halftime talks, got to know very successful varsity coaches, and picked their basketball brain through a lot of talks. I went to as many basketball clinics as I could. It also helped that I grew up in a family of basketball coaches. My brother-in-law is a legendary high school basketball coach in Indiana. He also was Gene Cady's top assistant at Purdue for several years. I had a cousin who was a varsity coach. I had a nephew who was a varsity coach. My daughter, Carrie, even coached basketball for a few years after she got out of college. So you can imagine the conversations on holidays were always centered around basketball. I even warned Carrie, and it's funny she brought that up. I even warned Carrie when she went to college. I said, Carrie, number one, graduate. Number two, don't fall in love with a guy that wants to be a basketball coach. I said, we have enough basketball coaches in the family, and I longed for the day that I could go to a game and just relax, sit back, and not worry about who's going to win and lose. Well, she didn't listen to me. As she said in Ron's notes there, she married a college basketball coach. He's developed one of the top NAIA Division II basketball programs in the nation. 2 years ago, he was the State of Michigan's College Coach of the Year. Marcia and I attend about every game, and my wife says I was a much calmer coach than I am a fan. And I know she's right. It drives me crazy those games. I was much calmer as a coach. I always enjoyed coming back to Bethany for a week in the summer to help Ron and Art's basketball camps. Even though I had to put up with Art for a week, the camp was informative and very organized for the participants, and they got to play a lot of basketball. Also, it was good to be around the other coaches who worked the camp: Joe Matson, Lyle Jones, Ryan Freeberg, Pete Matson, and Doug Meyer. I always looked forward to Ron, Art, and Lyle coming to Indiana recruiting players. We were able to attend several games to see some possible recruits and for them to experience Hoosier hysteria firsthand, like Lyle Jones did. Lyle Jones came down and was able to attend one of my games. I got a technical in that game, which I got very few of in 40 years of coaching basketball. I usually had a pretty good relationship with the referees, but I guess not this game. So I get a technical, and the game was held up because of the fans' treatment toward the referees. Listening to Lyle's remarks after the game, I think he was glad the game was over. Right, Lyle? And he was safely sitting in my house. I was always impressed with how Ron, Art, and Lyle presented themselves and Bethany Lutheran College to the recruits and parents. Some of those players that they recruited from Indiana, and you might recognize some of these names: Steve Hahn, Pat Murphy, Mark Mercer, Jason Bruce, Ryan Zeldenrust, Kim Lawrence, Heather Campbell, and others. I do know those players could shoot the basketball. Finally, I want to thank the committee for this great honor. To be part of Bethany's Athletic Hall of Fame that includes people that I have respected and admired for many years: Ron Young, Bruno Walensky, Art Westfall, Marv Meyer, Mike Butterfield, Steve Yeager, is truly the highest honor I could receive. And it was also, I should also mention, it was great to see Mike and Vicki Butterfield. We haven't seen them for a while, and we were really good friends, and we still are, and we're going to reconnect here. So it's truly the highest honor I could receive, and I thank everyone involved in that decision. Marcia and I retired in Holland, Michigan in 2013. We welcome Bethany friends anytime. We have beautiful beaches, so bring your beach attire. We have great places to eat, so bring your appetite. We live on a golf course, so bring your clubs, and we'll have a great time. You're always welcome. Thank you again, and my last statement is, go Cubs. Right, Art? Thank you.
I think I failed to mention the plaques that are up here, all the inductees and the team of distinction. We'll take some pictures up here tonight, and then you can pick those up tomorrow morning after that 5K that you all agreed to come back and run in the morning, right? No, okay. Probably not. I do want to mention, though, that obviously, again, Fall Festival is part of the weekend of activities here, of which this Hall of Fame banquet is part of. There is the 5K tomorrow morning. Hopefully all of you have had a chance, if you're able to stick around for the weekend, to take a look at a full slate of activities that you can re-engage with some things here at Bethany. The Alumni and Friends Reception, 4 o'clock, right in this spot. Tomorrow is certainly one of the highlights of the weekend as well. The worship service on Sunday morning. There's just a full array of activities. So for those of you, if you are able to stick around here in the community, certainly we hope that you would take part in those activities as well. Our next inductee, I actually have a somewhat, I guess, of a personal connection with, because I remember talking to you in the library when you were a senior in high school, and I was at Bethany and been there a couple years working the admissions route. And of course, I know of Belle Plaine. My wife Beth is from Belle Plaine, and Bethany, for many, many years, George talked about the connection that we have with getting basketball players out of Indiana. We've had a number of athletes over the years come out of the Minnesota River Conference, and I had made the trip that day to Belle Plaine High School to see this girl named Amy Sauter. Amy, you did not disappoint. You could play the game. You could play volleyball. You could play basketball and softball. You did them all well. All-American honors along the way. And I know that you were especially honored here tonight to have one of those coaches who helped you along the way introduce you. And so we'll bring that individual up right now. Bethany's women's basketball coach, Lyle Jones.
First, I want to, where's George at? Oh, right here. That was a trip down there. I really thought I was in the movie. I was in the bus, and I turned around, and there was 40 cars taking us home with their headlights on, and the quarters going on the floor when you got your technical. So that was an experience. So tonight, Amy, I just want to thank you for this after you left. I lost all my hair coaching you. No, you didn't. But when Amy did come, when we recruited her, there was something about her, and we pushed her quite hard. I saw some great qualities, some skill sets in her, and we really kind of pushed her physically to the edge and to bring out some competitiveness, which was definitely there, as you'll hear a little bit later here. But I want to thank the parents and the grandparents for raising such a wonderful woman. So thank you for that. At that time, when we got Amy, we were right on the cusp of setting a tradition. Usually we were 20th in the nation, 10th in the nation scoring, 10th in the nation in defense. And because of her, it solidified that tradition. And so that's where it started, is right from you. If we wouldn't have had her, you know, when you're going down the road and you're winning, recruiting is easier and you get better players. And that happened because of Amy. The Timberwolves had their big ticket, and so did we. And that's how I kind of look at you, as that you were our big ticket when you played for us. And not only in basketball, but volleyball and all the other sports that you played. She was never concerned about her scoring stats or rebounding stats. She just wanted to win. And she was very aggressive, great competitor doing that. And because of that, our program really is in debt to you. I mean, she really solidified that tradition of winning during those years, and really thankful for that. She could beat you deep, short, and today the intermediate shot is kind of lost. You definitely had that down too. She was an overall well-rounded player for us in those years. Like all Americans, very dedicated, hard worker, support her teammates, and extremely loyal to the team. The one thing that I kind of got out of her when she left is she got the mission of the college. She really fit it perfectly. One of the areas that I think that I'm more impressed with than just your statistics is she had empathy and kindness in her. When she played, after she got done with the game, in school, a very tough competitor, but she still had that line of, she was kind and had that empathy in her, very much so impressed us. So today, as she set that standard, I'll have assistant coaches come to me and say, what do you think about this girl? Should we recruit her or should we not recruit her? And I always say, does she have the Amy standard? Does she have that? Does she have that extra thing? Does she have the empathy, the kindness, the competitiveness, and the skill sets? But does she have that? And then let's go after her if she does. So you're kind of setting a standard, not only back then with our tradition, but today as we recruit. Do you have the Amy standard? Okay. I'm going to try to make this a little short because I know these things can get long, but I do have a story I have to tell. And might apologize to start with. When I see someone like yourself, and we know there's more in there we can get, we tend to be a little bit more blunt as we're watching them play and coaching them. And I think it was her freshman year, definitely it was, probably your first game, shaking your head. you look out on the floor and sometimes you'll see 5 players of your own playing hard, and sometimes you look out there and you may only see 4. And you'll go, where's Amy? She's invisible. I can't find her out there. So we substituted her out, and you might have to see if this is correct. I said something like this to her: if you want to spectate, go get some popcorn and pop, and you can sit right behind the bench. I think that was your first game. It was your first game, okay. And maybe I'm a little too blunt. My players say that I am blunt and they like it, but maybe I've softened over the years. But she, after that, I think, buckled down, and we could definitely see her on the floor from then on. So I know that got around to your grandparents. They might have been sitting right behind the bench, and they might not have liked that. But at the time, I thought it was prudent to get to her how hard you really have to play to become that All-American. So was extremely blessed by God to have you step into this campus and into our athletic program and to coach you. It was an honor to really coach you. It made coaching easier, having you on the team. And again, I think our tradition during those 12 years in the junior college system wouldn't have been there without you. So, Amy Sauter, welcome home.
Wow, thank you, Lyle, for all those very kind words. Part of the reason I wanted Lyle to introduce me was because I figured it would force him to say some nice things about me. So I was just sitting back and enjoying every word of that. So thank you. Thank you also to the Hall of Fame committee for even considering me and then nominating me for this honor. It is a true honor for me, as Bethany holds a very special place in my heart. For 2 years, I was able to do what I love to do, and that was compete in 3 of my favorite sports. When I first arrived at Bethany in the fall, early before school started for volleyball, I was a bit nervous. I didn't know exactly how the next level would go. Would the team like me? Would I play much? But when the doors opened to the gym and my volleyball coach, Coach Lynette, walked through the doors like speed walking with a smile ear to ear, she was so excited to start the season, which totally put me at ease. Coach Lynette had a genuine love for coaching volleyball and softball, and she passed that on to her players. We never wanted to lose or play badly because we just wanted to keep that big smile on her face and just keep her excited about coaching us. I don't remember any big volleyball games or softball games, but I do, for volleyball, remember the intense practices that were intense in a fun way. We would always end the practices with an inter-squad scrimmage, and we would just battle back and forth. I mean, nobody was giving up points, and it was a true battle. It was intense practices, sometimes more intense than some of our games, and none of us wanted to stop. And a lot of times, Lynette would lose track of time, and she would just say, stop, you have to get to the cafeteria to eat dinner. And none of us wanted to go, and I love to eat, so that says something. And it was the same for softball. We would just be in the zone, and we'd be batting or just scrimmaging, and the sun would be setting, and she'd have to, you have 15 minutes to run across campus so that you can eat, and it didn't matter. We just really loved playing for her, and she just passed on a love for us to compete in those sports. So I thank her for that. She passed on, like I said, the love of playing, and for us striving to get better in practice so that the sport was even more fun to compete in. And then there was basketball. Right from the beginning, I heard rumors and stories about how intense Coach Lyle was, and not just from the returning players. A lot of the faculty would find out I was playing basketball, and they'd say, well, good luck with that. And I just thought, what are they talking about? You know, he seems so nice and he's so funny and he's a little goofy. I mean, he can't be that bad. So my roommate, Melissa Leonard at the time, we were very intimidated and we wanted to be as prepared as possible. So coming off of volleyball, we had a week's rest before we'd start basketball, and we were in the gym training. And we really focused on the dreaded 16s that people kept talking about. Nobody really explained to us what they were, so we just assumed the worst. And we went into the gym, and we got to the end, the court line, and we just started running full court sprints 16 times, and we had to do it in a minute or less. Well, we got to about 10 or 11 at the minute mark, and we were terrified. We're not even close to getting the 16, and that's what they do. And Lyle keeps making them run until they get their 16 under a minute. And so we were a little discouraged after that little training. That night I did work study, and I ran into our assistant coach, and I told him, we have a problem. Melissa and I are not getting the 16s in. And he said, how can that be? You guys aren't that slow. And I said, well, we tried. We tried a couple times, and we weren't even close. And he was bewildered. I said, well, how do you get 16 full court sprints in a minute? And he goes, Amy, it's not the length of the court, it's the width of the court. So I knew this, and my assistant coach knew this, but Melissa we hadn't told her yet. So I can't really remember who came up with the little scheme. I'm sure it was the assistant coach, but we decided the next day I would encourage Melissa and I to go train again, and I would encourage to bring a backpack full of our heaviest books, and we'd try running with heavier books, and then that would maybe make us faster runners. So we showed up at the gym, and then the assistant coach was supposed to bring Lyle in while Melissa was running. So we got to the gym, and I pretended to tie my shoelace a little longer than it normally takes because she was wondering who should go first. And I said, well, why don't you go first? I have to finish tying my shoes. And so she got the big bag on her back, and she started running hard, and she made it. She came back and finishing lap 2, and Lyle walks in, and he's like, Melissa, what are you doing? And she said, well, we can't get the 16s in a minute, and I was looking kind of stressed too, and then he said the same thing. He goes, it's not lengthwise, we run the widthwise, and she was like, oh, so relieved, but yet a little embarrassed, and if anyone knew Melissa, she turned beet red, and then I had to let her know that I did find that out the night before, and eventually she did forgive me, so we're all good. But when we finally made it to practice, I did see a whole nother side to Coach Lyle. He did yell at us a lot, and we ran a lot. We did running defensive drills, we did running and shooting drills, we did rebounding and running drills, we did passing and running drills, we did fast break drills, then we scrimmaged full court, and then at the end we ran. So after about a week or so, I called home, and I said, Dad, I can't do this. I'm just not cut out for this. And he said, well, you can't quit because you already started. So see how the season goes, and then you can decide what you want to do next year. So I stayed, but I was convinced Lyle hated me. Anytime there was anybody that needed to run into a drill, Amy, get in there. And I had just done it, but it didn't matter. And then 2 drills later, I was always the one having to do the drill 3 or 4 times. So I knew he hated me. So we finally had a little sit down, and he had this sheepish smile on his face like he'd been there before. Anyway, after telling him how I felt, he told me something that I'd never forget. And he said, Amy, I only yell at the ones that I believe in and the ones that I know have potential. I yell because I care. You shouldn't worry if I'm yelling at you. You should be worried if I stop, because that means I've given up. So that put things in perspective for me, and I've shared similar coaching strategies with my own kids. Needless to say, I did come back. I was the only returner my sophomore year, but it was a great blessing because I had a great team around me, including another Bethany Hall of Famer, Kelly Kep, who was a high school rival, and we became great friends and great teammates. She's very worthy to be in the Hall of Fame. She's an extremely talented player, and she was a lot of fun to play with, and she made me better, and she made me look a lot better, too. My sophomore year, we also had another Hall of Famer, Coach Tiffany Young, join the coaching staff, which is really nice to have somebody who had been coached by Lyle on the coaching staff. So when we had some questions or just some frustrations, she, who was a legend to us, could kind of help us through those moments. And so I'm truly honored to be amongst their company. As I look back and remember all the great times that I had at Bethany, I won't forget the coaches and the teammates who have been with me from the beginning. My high school coaches, Donna Hawkins for volleyball and Doug Anderson for basketball, both had very early influences on me, and they both took chances on me, moving me up to JV and varsity younger than other people were doing at that time. So I'm very grateful for those opportunities because it led me to Bethany. And of course, my family. I wouldn't be here without my family. I could never thank my parents enough for all that they've contributed in their support throughout my athletic career. I have two of the best. My mom had every uniform washed and ready, water jugs filled and delivered, supper hot any time of the evening that I could eat. My dad let me shoot around while he coached his high school basketball team when I was 5. He coached my little league softball teams. He practiced pitching and doing fielding drills with me. He put lawn chairs out in the driveway so I could practice some basketball drills. But more than anything, getting a hug after every game, whether it was a win or lose, was probably the most meaningful. So I love you both so much, and I share this honor with you because I wouldn't have been able to do it, and I wouldn't be here without all of your dedication and support to my dreams. So thank you. I'm also very blessed to have my grandparents here tonight who were regulars in the bleachers. Parents have tough love for their kids, but grandparents have unconditional love for their grandkids. I mean, we don't do any wrong, right, Grandma? So when Lyle yelled out my name during my very first Bethany basketball game, and he did, he had it almost right. Amy, can I get you some popcorn while you enjoy watching the game? I obviously wasn't running fast enough. So, well, that put Lyle in the doghouse with my grandma. She didn't have much to say about him after that. So I'm hoping after tonight all will be forgiven and hugs will be shared and we can maybe even get a picture together. I'm thankful that my husband and 2 of my 4 kiddos are here tonight. Corey was so happy and excited for me that he made sure that we all made it back from Maryland to Minnesota for this, and he knew how much this meant for me to be here. And so thank you so much, and I love you so much. And lastly, 2 of the best parts of me who are here, Trey and Amory, who are both just in the beginning stages of their athletic journeys. I'm taking a lot of what I learned at Bethany, a lot of what I learned about myself while I was here, to coach you through all of your guys' ups and downs. Everything will not be rainbows and unicorns. It will take hard work. It'll take sacrifice. It'll take frustrating practices, and there's going to be days that you want to quit. And today, Trey even had a few moments where he wanted to quit. But just remember, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth the fight. And I may raise my voice at you, but it's because I care and I see the potential in you. Always be humble, appreciate all of those around you, and never give up on what you love. You never know what God has planned for you or how he plans to grow you, which he did while I was here at Bethany, through 2 amazing coaches who had 2 totally different strategies, but they both are what I needed and made me who I am. God brought me to Bethany. My journey here is forever imprinted in my heart, and I feel so blessed that I will be a permanent part of Bethany in this Hall of Fame. So thank you so much, and congratulations to all the other nominees too.
Well, you should.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Before we get to our last two inductees, we're going to take some time here to talk about a very special group of men who 43 years ago did something that was just totally not the norm in terms of athletic competition for those of us here in the North Country. This was a group that assembled, came from a wide variety of backgrounds, as we heard about a little bit this afternoon, and somehow through the experience and the wisdom and the drive of their head coach, Mike Butterfield, they got the opportunity to travel down to Miami, Florida, and again, do something that at that time had never really been done before, and that was to go down there to a national tournament in a men's soccer team and take third in the country. For many, many years, as I've been in this position here at Bethany, and even growing up kind of in the area, Bethany was known for soccer. Even at the 4-year level, when they would go out and play club teams or University of Minnesota and places like that, for many years, when it came to collegiate soccer in Minnesota, there was one team they talked about. There was one program they talked about, and that was Bethany Lutheran College. And this team that we're going to introduce, these were the guys who made it happen. And so we're very thankful. They have wonderful representation here tonight. A large contingency of them have been able to come back, and despite the fact over the 43 years life had taken them on different journeys, it was very empowering just to spend a few moments with them down at the hotel this afternoon. And you could see, even though time had lapsed, it was, for some of these guys, it was just there right away as they were greeting one another. We have plaques for each of you as well, and also that we have special soccer ball, and this is one we're going to keep. This is one we're going to be putting in the trophy case next to that 1973 third place national champion or national tournament trophy. And in order to talk about that team at more length, we'd like to bring up their head coach, Mike Butterfield.
The word celebration has been meaningful to me for many years. I'm convinced God's people don't celebrate often enough. And it's not about celebrating the individual gifts that we've heard about tonight, but it's about celebrating what God can do through us. And so we stand here tonight as a group that is recognized by our Hall of Fame committee with great humility. But I can tell you, since June when we were notified, hardly a day has gone by. But these guys, who I knew 43 years ago, imagine 43 years ago, what would they look like? What would Coach look like? And so there's a little gray, a few mustaches that existed in very dark colors way back are now gone because they were too gray to see anymore. But we continue to celebrate, and we especially I celebrate as a coach. Because what's important tonight is to recognize the mission of Bethany Lutheran College. I've been blessed to serve in Lutheran colleges 31 years. I've started 3 soccer programs at Lutheran colleges. And the reason I've done so is because of the mission of the institution. I believe that God uses us to understand Christian vocation in His own way, how we best serve Him in faith and our neighbor in love through all of the experiences that are uniquely given. And when we talk about this group, 11 of 17 are here this evening. When we talk about this group, this is an unusually gifted group of guys. And by the way, many of whom are still playing. A really old men's league. Before we get into what these folks accomplished through God's plan, President Ray Branstad, now sainted, was the president of this organization, this Bethany Lutheran College, my former pastor, president when I served. He drove a station wagon to Florida for us, one of 3 station wagons. He had done so, by the way, 2 years before, because Bethany did have a soccer team that went to the national tournaments and lost badly by double digits, actually, 2 years prior to 1973. But President Branstad could not have been a more supportive colleague, a more supportive president of the organization. Marv Meyer, I was wishing Marv might be here tonight, was our athletic director. We think of Orville Sampson, who drove the big bus. We think about the day that he embarrassed me because I was in the middle of a pillow fight. I'm not sure it was with these guys on the bus or someone else, but there Orville was being my mentor. Al Quist, again, is not here. Some of you here tonight, many of you know Al Quist. Al Quist meant a lot, very personally, to a number of these men that you see behind me this evening. But Al Quist, for 1 year, was the director of admissions. And Al Quist used the evangelism explosion outline on how you get to heaven a free gift by God's grace through faith. That was my recruitment outline in 1972. Can we just simply conclude that it was the right thing to do? It was the right thing to do if we would have been 0-16 rather than 15-1. But I remember stories I could tell you if we had more time tonight and how what impact that had on me as a young coach, 27 years old, with these young men almost my age, meeting their parents in their homes, going through this gospel outline about heaven as a free gift, and that's why Bethany Lutheran College exists. Another young man, now just about my age, a year younger, that's not here this evening is John Shep. John Shep was from Chicago, came to Bethany, was going to be pastor, was a college classmate of mine. John was from Chicago and went back and started recruiting and thereby laid the vision for Bethany's soccer program that you're about to hear about this evening. John brought Chicagoans with very unusual last names to this campus, a few of whom stand here, somebody by the name of Otenzio from Philadelphia, and Konstantinovich from Chicago. And then there was a Metcalf. I don't know how he got in there, but he was from suburban Minneapolis, the community of Edina. But he brought Kornstein, Nikolic, Protazuski, Buseski, Gonzalez, Costanzo, and so on. Typically not Norwegian Lutheran names. In 1973, it was 95 degrees. We were in Miami. We beat a team that hadn't lost yet in the first game from New York or from Maryland. In the second game, we lost to a team that has also been undefeated, and it was our only loss of the year from St. Louis. And then in 95 degrees, third day in a row, 9 overtimes, 95 degrees, we beat a team 2-1 on a penalty kick, of all things, if you know the game. What's important for us today is to recognize that experience is what has put, as Don properly said, in many ways put Bethany on the map as it put Bethany soccer. As a result of that, I had a very difficult time scheduling teams. We defeated the University of Minnesota regularly. Gustavus stopped playing. St. Olaf wouldn't play until I convinced them they were going to get better only by playing us. And I'm not kidding with you. That was the typical experience I had as a result of these guys who stand behind me. I would sit in the summer at a Minnesota State high school soccer all-star game, and at least 6 or 7 of the players would be announced as attending Bethany Lutheran College in the fall. Very proud times for our experience here. In 1973, one more point. With the guys who had a full ride scholarship, please raise your hand. I coached 13 years. We were up to $400 by the time I left. Our Wells friends were convinced we gave full rides, so that was always the experience that I heard from many pastors as I was traveling around the state. We were able to give 10% of our tuition as a scholarship, thanks to Marv Meyer's guidance. So you can see these were young men that came to get one of those magic scholarships. In 1973, we had 215 students. Monroe Community College, New York, today has 15,000. I don't know how many they had then, but I'm sure that they haven't risen in their attendance that much. 4,900. So they were smaller, but a little more than 215. In addition to being third in the nation with 15-1 record, in that season, these guys took 413 shots on goal in 16 games. They gave up 103. They scored 88 goals and gave up 9 in an entire season. At the age of 27, how does a young coach develop young men in soccer who probably knew a lot more about tactics than I did at that point in my life? I had spent a week the previous summer in Milwaukee with the German national coach. But when I worked with these young men, I realized that if I could build them together by building solid relationships of trust and understanding and spirituality amongst each other, that we were going to be successful because Steve Konstantinovich and others were going to lead the way in terms of tactics, working really as an assistant coach as much as anything. These young men knew that before games we would pray. They knew that in dormitories or in hotels we would have devotions. I still remember the university or the College of DuPage coach who came to me the day before we played them and said, I am so honored to play your team, and I've just wished that I could take my team and have devotions with them sometime. As I saw soccer, it was certainly an end in itself, but really only a means to an end. Why? To achieve the mission for which Bethany has stood for nearly 90 years. So who are these young men that you see before you today? 6 are not here. Jimmy Gonzalez came from Chicago via Uruguay. Ruben Armendariz from Chicago, living in San Antonio. Tomo Buseski, still from Chicago. Pete Tomford was from Zumbrota, Minnesota, now lives in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Michael Brady was from Minneapolis, continues to live in Minneapolis. I share with you that one afternoon, late in our season, I received a phone call from Michael's dad that his fiance had been killed by her brother and had shot both of her parents as well. What do you do when you're 27 and get that kind of call, except first of all be honored that a parent trusts you enough to see his son until he could come down and work with him. But what we do is to rely on one another here in faith, and President Branstad was an amazing pastor. And when I get it to heaven, I will certainly recall my thanks to him for that moment of support. Finally, the young man not here is Giuseppe Costanzo. Joe passed away in 1985. Joe was one of the finest soccer players that college soccer has seen. Certainly we say in the junior college level, but I think probably overall. Some called him the tree stump. He was very short, with legs about the size of tree stumps. He was a friend to all. He went with 2 of these players, Joe and Steve, to Huntsville, Alabama, and started an Italian restaurant business there before the Lord took him home. He scored the penalty kick goal in that 3rd place game, which won that tournament, that placement for us. At the same time, he was soft, according to his teammates, and we all recall, soft with a kind heart and a great sense of humor, and a pure defender, according to Tom Metcalf, our goalkeeper, who of course depended on Joe as much as anybody on our team. So we thank God for Joe's memory, and we thank him for bringing Joe to Bethany and helping us do what has been achieved here. If you guys will at least raise your hand or something so they can see your name and as I address your face here, see your face while I address your name. Claudio Attenzio. Claudio? By way of Italy. By way of Philadelphia, now living in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I remember picking him up at the bus depot here in Mankato. John Shep had identified him on records in the paper that he was an all-star player in Philadelphia, and would you like to come to the Midwest to school? And that's Claudio's story, and he's been such an amazing friend to so many over the years. He had an assist on that first goal in the national tournaments. Scott Eckberg, Bloomington Jefferson, a rugged defender, and I was reminded in our exchange of information that he defended Barbosa, who was an attacker from Milwaukee, area technical college, who I just heard today was doing more fisticuffs during the game than any referee began to see. But he didn't score much because Scott was all over him, and I am told by Scott that he got to light the game cigar, which was my reward for good play. What a terrible influence. I had a health instructor's man. By the way, it was Scott Eckberg who reminds me, I have no recollection of this, but it must be true because Scott said so, that I stood before the players the first time we got together and said, "You are likely to meet a wife here at Bethany." Can you imagine such a foolish thing? If they raised their hand, honestly, I will tell you that 6 of these guys ended up meeting a wife here at Bethany. So therefore, not a bad percentage of opportunity, right? What they don't know is that I used to talk to young women and ask them to invite them to chapel. And I used to tell the players, if you're looking for someone to marry, look for whoever's up early making breakfast. That was the instruction that I gave them. So going to chapel and making breakfast was the magic combination. Jerry Kessler, Bloomington, Lincoln. You'll recognize here the trend that started in this year that continued to be the formula for many years for Bethany. A preponderance of the highly skilled players from the Chicago area, and the mix then of the best players in the state of Minnesota, most of whom were all-state, certainly all-conference best in their team. Jerry was a lightning bolt on the right side, would often get beyond players before they even recognized that he had the ball, and so we've all recognized that. His goal in the finals and so many others were key. It just was an amazing player to watch. Tom Metcalf. Tom was our goalkeeper. In the national tournaments alone, he had 35 saves, 19 saves in the national third place game, the 9 overtime game. An amazing guy, a co-captain of our team along with Steve, just exceptional and just a fine leader with a great goalkeeper attitude. And if you understand soccer, you'll understand more about that. Doug Olson is here tonight with his wife Sharon. Doug is from Edina, still lives in the Minneapolis area. I could tell you a lot about what Doug did in soccer. He too was one of those fast, amazing players that just did so much, hardworking. Nobody worked harder than Doug. But Doug's entry into this team this year is that he produced single-handedly a book, a bound book, over 113 pages in length, and gathered information. And these guys will have a lifetime keepsake of pictures and stories that have gone through our years. It's just a wonderful contribution for which we're all certainly thankful to Doug. Bob Ray. Bob is from Bloomington Jefferson High School. Bob. Again, ball skills, long flowing hair, but has, back when hair was in style, and had a memorable goal at the College of DuPage, which took us on to the national finals, in fact. Nick Rude. Nick is one of those ELS guys. Yes, we did have some ELS guys on our teams back then. That was a good thing. Nick was from Detroit Lakes, up north. And he, along with me, learned a lot about soccer those first 2 years. Nick hadn't played much, but he came to us and played for 2 years and became a contributing player as a defender. And again, just a great guy and continues to be a friend of many of these fellows. Steve Sparley happened to also be an ELS guy. Steve was appropriate tonight in not wearing his clerical collar. Steve is an ELS pastor who serves in Grants Pass, Oregon, and his commitment to this tonight is that he is here and he's preaching Sunday morning back in Grants Pass, Oregon. So that is a commitment. But if you think that's commitment, David Thompson is going to follow here. David Thompson was from St. Louis Park. I remember watching David play, and I had never seen a player as good as David. And I had seen lots of soccer players, but David was an amazing young man. His parents became amazing friends of ours, and is now also an ELS pastor in San Antonio, who's here today and preaching in San Antonio on Sunday morning. That's commitment. Make sure President Molstead knows about that, will you? And get that. Glenn White. Glenn is here. Speaking of flowing hair and mustaches, right? Back when it was in style. But Glenn too was also from Bloomington, Lincoln. Lives up in northern Minnesota now, Alexandria. And again, a tremendous speed. We had, as you can see, a mix of those guys with speed and ball skills that were just tremendous. Finally, unless I'm wrong here, Steve Konstantinovich. I've called Steve Konstantinovic for years, and I'm trying to change it. That's why you hear me struggling. Steve, are you here? Yeah. The term is best for last. I don't think in my years that I have ever seen a player as good as Steve. That's a dramatic statement. He was selected last year as a member of this Hall of Fame, elected. Steve was accused at the University of Wisconsin Parkside by the coach who came over fuming at me somewhere in the middle of the game. "You have recruited a professional! Get him off the field!" That's how good Steve was. And as I say, he was so humble that he didn't seem condescending to me when I was coaching, because he knew so much more about the game, and the tactics on the field that year were certainly great credit to Steve. But he was truly gifted, scored multiple goals in multiple games, continues to be Bethany's probably forever all-time leading goal scorer in the work. I have seen Steve along the way as a professional soccer referee. And when we talk about people that are wonderful on the outside as they are the inside, it represents Steve Konstantinovich. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very proud moment for this group to recognize that they have advanced the mission of this college, and not just the mission of soccer expertise, but they have truly advanced. When we knew that there were people that came to Bethany because they had heard about Bethany through our soccer experiences, to me, it's the greatest reward that these young men have made a contribution forever to the future of Bethany Lutheran College and our mission. And so for that, we're always grateful to the Lord first, but I'm thankful to these guys for being here. And thanks, of course, to the Hall of Fame committee. Thank you.
Our next inductee into the Athletic Hall of Fame is Donald Henderson. I did not have the privilege of watching Donald play basketball, but one of the highest praises I think anybody, especially as you've heard tonight, associated with Bethany men's basketball could make would probably be his former coach, Ron Young, when we were talking about Donald through the selection process. Ron, you clearly stated without hesitation, Don Henderson was one of the best, and we've had some great basketball players here. A few of them, Anthony Bias here tonight and others. Mark Woods certainly name comes to mind. But you clearly, without hesitation, said Don Henderson was one of the best 5 basketball players I've seen here on this campus. The other thing that I think really deserves acknowledgement and praise tonight, especially as a guy who's the former dean of admissions at this school and now the director of athletics, Don Henderson Jr. is here as a student right now, and I love it when our alumni send back their children. In fact, Don Jr., can you just stand up? Sophomore here on the campus, yeah. As a parent, you can make no greater statement than to, when it comes to the college decision for your son or daughter, to when that selection gets made, when you send them back here to Bethany. We're very appreciative of that. Thank you very much. To talk about other accolades that would bring us tonight to honor Donald Henderson would be his teammate, Hollis Howard.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hollis Howard. I had the privilege of playing with Don in the 80s, 81 to 83. We had a very, very good team back then. Just like Don said, he was one of those special players that you're only going to see, every blue moon. Excuse me, everyone. I haven't spoken publicly in a long time, so please look over my nervousness. Coming from Milwaukee, we were a bunch of, young kids coming out of the inner city of Milwaukee. And, I was very scared to come up here. And as you can see, I'm still scared. But let me be honest with you. The experience I had up here was by far one of the greatest experiences of my life. I got it at an early age, and coming from a single parent home, my mom was all I had. And you know, her and my sister brought me up here. And as soon as I got on the campus here, I was scared. My mom was looking around, and we seen Don. And my mom said, "Don, don't you let nothing happen to my baby." and he said, "Okay, Miss Howard, I got her." We got a chance to come behind some great players like David Krantz and Anthony Bias. They showed us the way. You know, Don was all state, he was all conference, all regional, and he was all American, JC All American. I think he was the first player to do that in a while. I don't know what other players you had that made All American status, but that's quite an accomplishment, don't you think? Also, I'd like to get into some of the humanities about Don. When you played the game of basketball, it's the type of game that teach you transitioning life skills. It teaches you skills like commitment, hard work, forming relationships, all of these different skills. So, as an athlete and also a friend, Don is probably one of the greatest humanitarians I've seen in a long time. Last year, I lost my mom, and Don was one of the first ones there. You know, he came over, he brought me food over, and he was just, a rock for me to lean on. So there's been other friends of mine that were part of that Bethany team that lost their mom. He was the same way. He was right there. That first team, I played 2 years here. That first team was a dynamite team. But when we came up, like I said, we were from urban metropolitan area, Milwaukee. We didn't know what quite to expect. So, we were a little squirrely. I don't know if we were the last team that really made Ron retire. But we were a bunch. I didn't start that year, and I always had real confusion about that. I'm gonna have to have a talk with Ron before I leave about that. But we had a great squad that year. We had 3 outstanding shooters all around the perimeter. And then we had a big center named Don Pultz. And then we had on the strong forward, we had Mike Canary. But those 3 guys out front, Don Henderson, Peter Manning, and Jim Wall, they were the other team's nightmare, I tell you. It was Don and Pete. Those guys, they really knew how to put the ball in the hole. You had 60, 70, sometimes 70 points between that backcourt. And of course, on the other side, James Wall, he had a sweet stroke too. So that was an outstanding team. But Don, I don't know if it was confidence or if it was a little hot dog on there. but he always would, he always would come down the court and say, he would shoot the ball from 20 to 30 feet. That was pretty much his range. But he'd shoot the ball. He'd say, that's off the glass right there. He said, that's nothing but net. That's nothing but net. Real special ball player. I'm very honored to know him. He's been there for me and other teammates time and time again. I love him, and I respect him. And without further ado, Mr. Don Henderson.
Good evening, everybody. I don't have a whole lot to say, but I'm gonna say enough to get everything going. During these times, I don't hardly come back and talk about basketball and this and that. I try to tell my son that, the new young guys, they know it all. So you have to end up going with them what they think they know so much, So, but I just want to say good evening to everybody. And I'm a little bit nervous, never been nervous before on the basketball court. I always thought, hey, I'll take care of it. And played in front of hundreds, thousands of fans before. But tonight, something just giving me the little goosebumps. So bear with me. And like I say, it's real nice to be here back at Bethany. I end up, before I got back to Bethany, I had went down to Missouri Valley College. So as I'm down in Missouri, I stayed down there for 1 month. I said, man, this is not one for me. So as I made my way back, I'm calling Marty Matthews, Anthony Bias. I said, hey, man, I'm going to come on up to Bethany. They said, well, yeah, that'll be good, Don. Come on, we got you. So then I come up here in January, coldest time of the year. My radiator's just clicking. So here it is, one of the first time I'm here. I ain't never seen 15 below zero with a wind chill of 60 below. And they said, don't go outside, it's an emergency disaster outside. So I said, okay, I'm gonna stay right in here under this blanket, and this is what y'all brought me to. So anyway, as I came, and they just told me that I was gonna be able to play in January. Marty was all, yeah, Don, you're gonna be able to play. I already done talked to Ryan. Ryan said, yeah, it's good. I said, okay then, so I'm practicing, working out with the team. Didn't know Ron and Anthony Bias had already had a conversation. So I find this out just maybe 2 months ago at a barbecue down in Milwaukee. He said that Anthony Bias and Ron had the conversation, said that Don Henderson might destroy the chemistry on the team. I know where it came from. It came from Anthony Bias. So anyway, I said, well, okay. Ron said, well, Don, I'll tell you this. I really don't want to have you for 1.5 years. I'd rather have you 2 years. So then I said, okay, Ron, that's fine. And during that next year, I end up becoming the player that I am from Ron Young. Ron Young has been not just a friend, a mentor, and a real personal friend, and just like a father for me. He guided me. Sometimes I had got into a little trouble, and he told me that, he said, Don, you're not a follower, you're a leader. And those words are still sticking with me right now. I'm not going to speak about nothing about the basketball and everything like that, because those accomplishments, it's been there in the past, but I enjoy it all. I really love it. I want to give some thanks to my moms. My mom is here. She's 79 years old. My mom, she worked 2 jobs, some days double shifts, just to have food on the table for us, to get us through school, get me up here. I remember the first time when I got on the bus to go to school, me and her going to college, me and her crying like a baby, just crying. My baby going away from me. My baby, is you gonna be back? Is you gonna be back? I said, yeah, I'll be back, Moms. So anyway, I like to thank my moms for, taking care of me and making me one of the guys, making me the man that I am right now. So then I came on to Bethany, like I say, in January. And so then now, only things I want to go out to are my nieces and my nephews, because I try to guide them the right way, doing things with them. I had my nieces and them, I used to go play ball at the park. And I would have my 2 nieces sit down, watch me play ball, and then go do things with them after basketball to make sure that they was all right. So I'd like to thank my nieces that's here, my nephews that's here, and then I would like to also thank my wife for 25 years. I think today she was a little bit more nervous than I was. She's telling me, you got this together, you got that together. What about this? What about that? I said, baby, everything is all right. I said, so we're going to go up to Bethany because it's just like a family. Bethany is my second family. And I love it. I love it that my son then came here to finish his education where I started my education at. And last but not least, to the committee, Mr. Ron Young, Don Westfall, the new president. Marv Meyer was the president when I was here. Some things went down and he ended up taking care of me. And I would like to just thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to be in the Hall of Fame with the great Bethany alumni.
Our last inductee of the night comes from Lester Prairie, Minnesota. Dan Prain. And when Art Westfall came back to Bethany to kind of get the baseball program again back in the mid-'80s, I think one of the first things Coach Westfall would always talk about is, I'm going to build a team. It's got to start on the mound. And so Bethany, under Art Westfall's coaching, certainly became known as a school where pitching was dominant, it was good. And you're about to meet the guy who set single-season pitching records as far as strikeouts and then combined career strikeouts in a little bit. But before we bring Dan up here, we want to talk about the guy who actually, I was the admissions counselor at Lester Prairie. I didn't know about Dan Prain, but Art Westfall found Dan Prain, and he's going to come up and talk to him a little bit about what Dan Prain brought to Bethany. Art Westfall.
Pretty shocking that Don, as the admissions counselor calling on Lester Prairie, knew nothing about Dan Prain. And I had to find him on my own. So what does that say about our admissions department? It's a good thing our enrollment is going up now. Certainly, I've been really fortunate to have been involved with every one of the Hall of Fame inductions. And it is just amazing, the stories every year, the emotions every year. It's really, really been a neat deal. And I certainly want to add my congratulations to all of the inductees this evening. And, the reason George always got us behind in camp was because he talks so slow. Campers would say, can he talk a little faster? George, it's obvious the impact that you had on Bruno. He left after your first year. And imagine Ron looking at his team and George was the only one coming back. Welcome to college coaching. Don, Ron told a lot of guys a lot of things just to get them here over the years. He told you were going to play, didn't he? He knew you weren't going to play. Amy, what a pleasure watching you. And Grandma, I agree with you about Lyle. He was my assistant coach for a number of years. I know what you're talking about. And President Pfeiffer, I hope that you heard Coach Butterfield talking about the president driving the station wagon to the national tournament, and so we'll keep that in mind. And the team of 73, what a special group. What a special group. And the gesture that you guys made this afternoon is so very special. You know, I told you this afternoon, I heard about that team for a long, long time, and it's been legendary. Not only your team, but all the people that are inducted tonight have made great impacts on the athletic program here at Bethany. And I'm always reminded at these events about the wonderful athletic tradition that there has been at Bethany here for so long. And the kinds of stories that we hear about the athletic accomplishments, but also the accomplishments that the people have done and accomplished after they've left here. Pretty special, pretty special. And I think that speaks to the volume of the value of athletics here on our campus and what athletics can do for young people. I'm also always amazed at the generational difference between the groups that have been inducted here. Tonight alone, we have from 1968 to 1998. 30-year span. I've been at one where there was a 50-year span. And yet the words that, even though they're a little bit different words, the theme of the impact that Bethany had on the athletes while they were here is the same. Whether it's 1968, last year was the 1959 basketball team. 1998, the words are the same, the impact. And then the impact that those athletes have when they leave here on so many others. We heard Amy talking about what she does with the people that she coaches and her families. That's what Bethany's all about. And that's what I think our athletic department has been about for so long. So Don mentioned pitchers at Bethany. Dan Preen is the fourth pitcher that I've had the fortune of inducting into the Hall of Fame here. The first one was a guy named John Rogie, who I think was influential in getting Dan to come to Bethany. John went on and pitched at the University of Minnesota and was actually newcomer of the year in the Big Ten the year after he left here. Dave Buckley went on and pitched at Texas Lutheran. Last year we inducted Todd Steffen. Todd Steffen played AAA baseball for the Baltimore Orioles. And tonight, it's a pleasure to induct Dan, and believe me, Dan fits with that group. Dan fits with that group. So here's Dan Preen from Lester Prairie, Minnesota, and we're looking for somebody that's going to take us to maybe a little bit different level. Didn't know anything about Dan Preen, because our admissions people never told me about him. But Dan Preen had everything that I was looking for as I looked to recruit young players to come here and play. He came from a great family. He was a bit overlooked, and I suspect some of the athletes here might have had the same feeling. He was a bit overlooked. He wasn't highly recruited, but he was a really hard worker. He had a great desire to succeed. You could see that when you talked to him. He wanted to be good. And then, of course, he had talent. He was good. My only hope when Dan decided to come here was that I wouldn't mess him up. And, you know, I think Dan would like me to talk about the team's accomplishments. And you can see all the numbers and the stats and those kinds of things in the program. But the 2 years that Dan was here, we were divisional and regional champs both years. We were 53-23 overall and 37-11 in our conference. Pretty impressive 2 years. Pretty impressive 2 years. Now, individually, he did some pretty special things. He was the only guy that I ever coached here in baseball that was a two-time All-American. And then remember now, as Don, as you remember, in the 73, there was only one division in junior college at that time. That was Division I. So that was all of the southern schools and all those. So there were three pitchers that were named to the first team All-American. Dan, both years, had the fourth most votes. So he was the first guy on the second team All-American. Only guy that I ever coached that did that. 10 times when he took the mound for us, he gave up 5 hits or less. 10 times 5 hits or less. Every time we put him out there, we thought we had a pretty good chance to win. I mean, that's pretty amazing when you start to think about that. And the other, he was all division, all conference, all region, and all American both years. Both years. Pretty impressive. The one individual accomplishment that Dan and I have talked about, and as I was talking to a lot of his teammates, they said, Coach, I don't know if you want to tell this story, but you really have to tell this story. And I talked to Dan, and he's going to refer to the story, I think, as well. He really holds the distinction of giving up the longest home run in the history of Bethany. The longest home run I've ever seen. I watch Major League Baseball all the time, and I hear them talking about 450 feet home runs, and I think I was a witness to one that was a lot longer than that. Now, those of you that are going to be around campus tomorrow, and those of you that have been on campus, I want you to imagine this. Walk out to the baseball field, stand on home plate, and think about this. We were playing Indian Hills Community College in the district playoff. We had won the regional. We're now playing a 2 out of 3 series to go to the World Series. Indian Hills that particular year had 12 guys that had been drafted by major league teams, and they were protected by those major league teams. We have Dan Preen from Lester Prairie. And they have a young man named Rivera who's batting for him, a left-handed hitter, and he hit a ball that, honestly, if I had not been there and I was listening to this story, I wouldn't believe it. But you go look. This ball went out of our ballpark in right center field at the 367-foot mark. The ball, as Dan told me tonight, was still going up at that point. The sound was something I had never heard before. It was an explosion off the bat. We did not have the tennis courts where they're at that point. It was just an open field. But the property fence went all the way around. This ball went over the property fence and landed in the street beyond the property fence, and they picked the ball up in the yard across the street. Now, I thought the ball had landed between the home run fence and the property fence, and our center fielder told me, the next coach, no, it went over the second fence. So the next day I was just a bit curious about how far that really was. So from the 367 mark to the property fence was another 145 feet. Then there was a bit of a boulevard between that and the street, and then it landed in the middle of the street. So Dan holds that distinction. Dan, I didn't bring that up to the committee when we were voting. Now, this guy the next year went on and played at the University of New Orleans and led the NCAA Division I in RBI. So this wasn't some guy that just walked in off the street. Couple games that I remember distinctly about Dan. His first game as a freshman in the regional tournament. We had never won a regional tournament here. We had never won a regional tournament in baseball. So we're playing the North Dakota champion, and Dan's on the mound. He's a freshman. And the top of the first inning, the leadoff guy hits a home run. Dan walks the next guy, and the next guy hits a home run. And I'm thinking, this doesn't look real good at this particular point. We're playing in North Dakota against North Dakota. Dan gives up one hit the rest of the way, and we win 4-3. And then we went on to win that regional tournament, the first regional tournament that we've ever won. The next year, we're playing one of our first games, and we're playing Normandale Community College, and those of you people that played around here know that Normandale was always a power. We're playing in Bloomington at Valley View Field, and Dan's pitching, and about the third inning, it starts to snow. Not sleet, it snowed. And I remember standing in the third base coach's box in the fifth inning, and the Normandale coach said, Art, what are we doing here? And I said, that's a really good question. But at that point, we were winning, so I thought it was a good idea to keep playing. Dan throws a one-hitter that day. 3 balls hit out of the infield. And he threw 94 pitches, 68 of which were strikes. In the snow, we know what the temperatures are like. It didn't faze him. One of his teammates would tell you it should have been a no-hitter. Because in the 7th inning, there was a ball hit in the right center field. The right fielder says to this day it haunts him that he didn't catch it because he should have caught it, and he normally would have, but he didn't want to be there because it was too cold. Dan wanted to be there. Finally, his sophomore year, our first game in the conference tournament, we win 2-1. Dan throws a 4-hitter, and we advance all the way through the tournament, and it was because of him getting us off to a great start. You know, so I think it's always great for coaches to get up here and say all of these nice accolades, but, you know, I think the true test for those of us that have been around athletics for a while know that the true test of an athlete is what do his teammates think about him? And so, you know, to me, Dan, you know, when we were 2-year school, our success, I always used to tell the sophomores, we'll be as good as you help our freshmen be. And that was always true. And I think those of you that played, you know that what did the sophomores do for you when you were a freshman, and then as a sophomore, what did you do for the freshmen? So here's a note from one of Dan's teammates. On a personal note, being a walk-on as a freshman, Mike, we had those big scholarships too. So this young man decided to walk on. Dan was the pitcher that I obviously looked up to most, and he immediately started being my workout partner. So here's Dan, returning player. He's our best pitcher. He reaches out to a young man that maybe wasn't that good. I don't think the success that I had would have been possible without him setting the standard for myself and everyone else who was a part of our staff during those 2 years. He worked harder than anyone else, and the results spoke for themselves. So he was a leader. He worked hard. I always felt like if you couldn't get your best play, if your best player was the hardest worker, you were going to be okay. He was a great teammate, and he was a leader. Here's another comment. Dan was fun in the dugout when he wasn't pitching, but as intense and competitive on the mound as any pitcher I've ever played behind, always gave his best effort. This young man went out of his way to write 3 pages, of which I'm just going to share a couple things. He talked about facing Dan as a freshman in fall ball, seeing 3 pitches and having the pleasure of walking to the dugout. Here's what he said. Dan is a teammate. I think when you talk a lot about Bethany, when you talk to a lot of Bethany baseball alums, you will probably hear the same common theme about how much they enjoyed playing baseball at Bethany. That was because of our fellow teammates. I had the unique pleasure of getting to play and watch Dan for both of my years at Bethany. He was a great example to me and his teammates regarding his work ethic, desire to improve, despite the fact that he could have coasted because of all the talent he had. I know he's an example, and I personally use to motivate myself and improve myself to reach the level of play. He had a great attitude, but he also knew how to have fun. This young man is still not sure who put the eye black on the inside of his hat, so when he put his hat on and went out in the field, he had the black eye black around. He suspects Dan might have had something to do with that. You know, baseball is a game where there's a time to be loose, and then there's a time to buckle down. And then he says, Dan was a great teammate, a great example for me and the other guys to improve ourselves, a tremendous confidence builder for his teammates, those level of play during the game, just an all-around wonderful guy, and definitely the leader of the team. Another example. Overall, the best thing I can say about Dan was no matter what the situation, winning or losing, he was the constant leader of the team. And then finally, a young man sent a story about, I think, to me, what epitomizes Dan. And he tells a story about how he was playing amateur baseball. And Dan was a spectator at this particular game. Even though, in this young man's words, Dan was the guy. He was the Division I pitcher. He stuck around to watch one of his former teammates at Bethany play in an amateur tournament. This particular guy hit a home run, and he said the loudest guy cheering in the stands was Dan Preen for one of his former teammates. So he said, I don't want that to be interpreted about me, because the moral of the story is this. As good as he was, as talented as he was, he seemed to get greater joy from his teammates, and in this case, former teammate doing well. He always had that smile on his face with a quick laugh, never in a bad mood. You know, I said earlier that Dan had all the qualities that I was looking for as a recruit. He then had all the qualities that I had the pleasure of coaching, and he displayed those as a player here for 2 years. Truly one of the outstanding baseball players and young men to ever have played here at Bethany. And it was a great honor for me to coach him, and it gives me a great honor to introduce him tonight. Dan Preen.
Well, Ron, mine's not going to be as long as yours. I promise you that much. Well, it's big, but I have to read it. First of all, I want to say, thanks for the committee for choosing me, and amongst everybody else said the same opportunities. There's plenty of other athletes that would have come through the door that are well deserving. I also want to say thank you to the staff for the great dinner and making me even more bigger than I should be. And not enough water on the table, but it's okay. And Don, I know your nervousness. On the court, on the mound, I get it. But up here, it's a whole nother world. I don't know how professors do it with all of us staring at them for an hour. This is 7 minutes, right? Again, thanks for the committee for choosing me. Don, I got a call from him back in June. It says, Dan, I've want some news for you. Congratulations for being part of the Hall of Fame. I want to induct you myself. At first, I was like, for what? Didn't do anything. I talked to my significant other, Kelly, and she's like, that's a great honor. You should be proud. All I did was play ball. Went to school, played ball, worked, earned my keep, making Coach proud for bringing me here. And I'm nervous. I'll probably get teary-eyed. And yes, there is crying in baseball. As I'm about to have a moment, as Don was telling me in the story about being selected, I don't know what the selection committee looked at, why me. I ran through it all. Why? Why not him? Why not him? Why not him? I was only part of a team, as Coach alluded to. I was fortunate enough to have the talent that my parents blessed me with and that God gave me, and I just used it here and worked on drills, and more drills. Not to mention numerous polls I end up running, Coach. It's difficult to put to words what this accomplishment actually means. Good thing I got a napkin. People ask, why did you choose Bethany? Well, I wasn't recruited, Don. I've got a unique way of recruiting. It's one of the first things that, aside from the 500 and, what was the last count, 531 feet? Something like that. I was fortunate enough for Coach to get a phone call from my cousin Dean. You know Dean Schwartz. A couple of you guys already know Dean Schwartz from around here. He's my cousin. He's the reason why I got to here. And how I got to here was a town team called Plato. I came from a small school. Amy, you probably know who Plato is. You're born in the same area. I was fortunate enough to be pitching one night, and Dean has this little smirk on his face, says, Coach knows. Runs over to me as I'm warming up on the mound, trying to get myself ready for the game. He says, Coach is here. Don't screw it up. I'm like, Coach who? I have no idea who Coach is. Dean had taken the initiative to call Coach, have him come out, watch this tall, lanky kid from Lester Prairie, Minnesota, and pitch against a team called Cologne, which you may have known. I go on to pitch my first and only no-hitter, which coach calls next morning, hey, if you want, I would like to have you come to Bethany. And I'm like, Bethany who? Where? Never heard of them. Heard of Mankato State, heard of all the other ones, St. Olaf's, Gus Davis, but Bethany's not even on the radar. Well, here I am. 21 years later, I'm coming back on campus doing this, and where baseball started in my career was when I was probably old enough to waddle. I guess I call it, because I was too chunky to run when I was little. I grabbed my fireman engine hat, my little red bat, I grabbed the couch, the coffee table, the TV, and a doormat was my baseball field inside my living room. And my parents threw balloons at me. And for some reason, I'm always safe at home. I hit it, run, waddle, whatever, and that's where it started. And from there, I went to junior high, followed my friends. All my friends were out older. So you got kind of humbled in a hurry. As many of you guys know, if you're the younger kid on the block, older kids tend to beat on you a little bit, and you're the punching bag per se. And that's where my talent started. Whether it was football, basketball, baseball, hockey, it didn't matter. We were all doing something. And sometimes, Mom, sorry for all the windows I broke. Playing ball in the house and outside. Aside from my window breaking years, I was one kid in a small town that got the opportunity to play at Bethany. Came on campus in the fall of '93 to something I had no clue what college was. High schools, go to class, I'm worried where you get to practice. Academics, what's that? You get to campus, everybody here was family. No matter where you came from, who you were, down in your luck, you came from the Ritz, you came from the guy who barely had enough to do anything, you were treated the same. There was no difference whether you were an athlete, you were a student, or a part-time student or whatever. The professors always had an open door policy, whether it's before class, after class, their door is always open. I remember talking to Ron a couple times in class, like, I don't understand this. Well, come after class. Patty Lesky was the same way. Mr. Yeager, everybody that was there would help you with something. Whether it's, where's your next class, to how can I help you get better as a person, not just a student. It was better as a person. They think outside the box, was Bethany. It's easy to think in the lines. Think outside the lines. And you take that with you through life. And back to my cousin Dean, that's how I got here. That's how I got to Bethany and my academics here. I showed up on campus, fall ball starts. Again, I'm running to Dean. And he's like, well, coach will not meet to any freshmen, won't speak to any freshmen until grades come out. And it was true. You're nervous, you see coach on campus, you say hi, and you get the, who are you and why should I talk to you? Not, it's true, coach, and thank God you did it. It's a whole nother respect when it comes in like that. You learn that you were a student athlete. You're not an athletic student. Those are a dime a dozen. Student athletes take something pride. It takes hard work. It's like being an athlete in a book world versus the sports world. It takes both. And now I'm losing my train of thought here, but that's okay. Let me gather myself here. So without Dean giving Coach the call, I wouldn't be here at Bethany, and I wouldn't be here tonight because of the talent I have, the coaching I had, the support I had from the staff here. Bethany is home. No matter where you go, whether you go off to, I was so fortunate enough to play with a lot of major leaguers who went on to play. I went to Iowa State and played, but Bethany is still home. No matter where I go. Where'd you go to school? I went to Bethany. Then where? Well, it doesn't matter. I started here. And now I'm ending here. Now, when it comes to things I've learned at Bethany, There's a couple, I'll try to be brief. Rules are necessary in life and in sport. Limits are only as real as you make them. You don't win all the time, you don't lose all the time, but there's lessons in both. And in the end, that's what matters. Setbacks happen, defeat is a choice. You learn to push yourself, make yourself better, and you're never done learning. Whether here, in life, or wherever, you're never done learning. The hard work you put in now makes it easier later. And the one I always pushed myself when it came to practice and drills, it's not about me. It's about us. It's always been about us. And for that, I thank Bethany for giving me the opportunity to be a part of its history, not mine. This is Bethany's thing, it's not mine. It's my team, it's my college, it's their award. I was just fortunate enough to be the individual taking it. So with that being said, I will try to be a little brief. A couple of things I want to say thank you to. Besides Bethany and the college, I want to say thank you to my parents. I don't know where I could begin. Without both of them, none of this would have been possible. In between them and the good Lord giving me the talent from both of them to do what He did to get me here. It's not possible. Thanks to my mom for always changing her work schedules to get me to practice, making sure I had a clean uniform to go play, because heaven forbid you show up dirty, right, Coach? You know, and Dad, taking the time to drag me as a little kid to all those softball games. Pardon me. It gave me the drive to be like Dad. Not be like Mike, be like Dad. I learned through his quiet talkings, he could talk without even saying anything. To change your attitude, to change this, do this, make the right choice. And next to him is my mom yelling at the top of her voice to make me upset to concentrate on what I am doing. So what do you do as an athlete? You got one parent yelling and one parent quietly watching. And it's like, okay, I'll just go the row. And then my sister, who growing up she was a pain in the butt. I'm not gonna lie. That's okay. I love you anyway. Without her, it's like, she taught me a lot of things outside of sports. It's okay to be an individual. It's okay to do what you want. Push the limits, push the boundaries. It's kind of hard to learn from your younger sister, but it's true. She's got the academic athlete, I've got the athletic ability. We've had that talk numerous times. I would gladly switch it, trust me. Academics was not my strong point. Coach, I don't know where to begin, but thanks for taking Dean's call. Without you, I wouldn't be here. None of those stats that you read or the talent, thanks Don, for showing up at Bethany would have brought me here. I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't get the pleasure of meeting all the people I see here and feel the family part that you have for being part of the athletes here. One thing I'm going to do, though, I'm going to test Coach's philosophy. If you'd all take me a moment and close your eyes and don't think of anything. Just think of, if you're an athlete, think of your basketball court, whatever your famous thing is. But just trust me, don't think of pink elephants. Whatever you do, don't think of pink elephants. And go ahead and open them. How many of you thought of pink elephants? Coach, I still see a river. No idea. I mean, that was one of the things that Coach sat us down in the dugout. One of our first things to mentally see where you were able. I don't know if I'm just odd, but whatever, but my whole rest of my team saw pink elephants and started giggling, like many of you probably had. I did not. I just saw a river. I had no idea. As much as it was really weird, but I've not. And then, yeah, the rumor is true. I will confirm that that pitch that Rivera hit, I don't think it landed yet, and I think the crater's still on the other side of the road where it did land. But it was, I think it was 531 feet. But as stories go, I caught a fish this big and it gets longer, which is okay. It's a record that will forever stand as long as Bethany's still here. And it's one that, you know, I gave it up, I earned it, but at the same time, our team still was there to witness it all. It's a team game. I was only good as my teammates behind me and the coach I had on the bench. Whether I gave him the gray hair that he has, and, you know, I don't know. I'm just proud that I got the chance to play with Bethany. On behalf of myself and other athletes here today, congratulations to you guys. You guys well earned it, well deserved. Many of the coaches should be in the Hall of Fame as well. I'm sure there's going to be many more of athletes that are coming in down the road. But, Coach, without you here, as you said, a lot of us wouldn't be here. You have crossed numerous ways, both as a coach, a friend, a father figure. You have affected numerous people. For that, I thank you. And for that, I will wrap up my speech. I just want to thank you all for coming. I know it's been a long night. And the kids, I appreciate your patience. You know, you guys have been well deserved, well behaved. Thank you all for coming. I may not know all of you, but as of now and here forward, you guys are all family. You're all Bethany alum. Have a good night, and God bless you all.
Well, we started out and I promised you to hear some laughs, some smiles, some great stories, and probably a few tears along the way, and I think it lived up to its billing in that regard. Greg Vandermis is here, who coordinates our visual media and mass media program, is involved with some of the broadcasts we do on campus. He tells me that he's hoping by the middle of the week to have some of this up on our website, blcvikings.com, so we'll have the full ceremony up, and then he also, hopefully Greg maybe put together just a brief montage of some of the speeches as well. It's very empowering to stand in front of you and hear these stories because, as you heard from Coach Westfall, whether it's the 60s, 70s, all the way through the 90s, and what we certainly aspire to in this day and age here in varsity athletics at Bethany, it's the teamwork, it's the camaraderie, it's the great stories, but it's the mission. It's the one thing needful of Bethany, and that's where we're all united here tonight to celebrate that. And certainly congratulations to our 4 new inductees and the 1973 team as well for all the success that you had while you're here on campus, but it's also heartwarming to see all the success that you continue to have in your lifetimes.